welcome to this event on effective negotiation skills in government. We have two fantastic speakers who will be leading our discussion today. Daniel Kwan Watson was a Deputy Minister for the Government of Canada for nearly 15 years, handling some of the most demanding and challenging files facing Canada's public service. Perry Walker joins us today. Perry Walker was a civil servant in his 20s and 30s. He spent the rest of his 30s as the Assistant Finance Director at the John Lewis Partnership. He then joined the New Economics Foundation, later co-founding Talkshop, his current organization.
So let me introduce the win-win workout with a slide that shows the opposite. So too many negotiations start like this, with two people at the top of the mountain shouting at each other. So if they're shouting at each other, first of all, very hard to hear the subtleties of their positions. And more important, they're locked into a position of win-lose. There's no possibility of finding a more creative win-win solution. So what do we do about that? And the answer is we have to get them to go down the mountain. We get them to answer this question, often several times. So the question is, why is this important to me? And that gets them underneath their position, down to their interests, and then maybe underneath their interests, down to their needs. When they manage to get down the mountain, they've passed their interests and they've come to their needs and they've found common ground. And there are two sorts of common ground. One is about the issue, but there's another sort of common ground, which is that they have recognized as a human being, they've recognized that they live in the same world. And both of those factors are going to encourage those people, those groups, to work together in future to find a solution that works for both. So having found that common ground, they can now climb up a different mountain together and find a solution that works for everybody.
Negotiating in the public sector is a very different thing than negotiating from a position that's outside the public sector. And it's often true that even the most junior negotiator in the public sector will have a broader impact on society. And the way you negotiate and what negotiate and how you negotiate actually defines in part the society in which we live. And I think that's a critical thing for every public servant to remember at all times. The biggest part of the work that you're going to need to do is on your own side. It'll be from dealing with the people who are in theory supporting you, not from the people on the other side of whatever tables it is. And that's because that's where you've got to do most of your work. And you need to understand who needs to be happy with the final solution. And you might think that's obvious at the outset, but trust me, when you start asking the questions about who needs to be happy when, you sometimes get some nasty surprises. I think the other thing you want to do is ask, what is success? You know, success isn't always just 5 cents off per box of paper that we buy somewhere for our photocopiers. It can be a whole bunch of other things, getting new people involved in the marketplace as suppliers, favoring particular regions in their economic development. It could be any number of things. Understanding what the other parties need is absolutely critical. Where people I find make mistakes is they try to figure out how are they going to respond to what the other parties are talking about. But what you need to understand is, what is it that they need? What is it that they want? Why are they at that table? What are they afraid of? I've always refused to let negotiators go to the table unless they could tell me what the other side was afraid of. Understand what the broader public interest is in any negotiation, from buying photocopier paper up to doing what I spent a lot of my career doing, which is addressing some of the most horrific aspects of the Government of Canada's history with Indigenous peoples, is something where you need to very much be aware of those things well above and beyond the transaction that you might imagine you entered into negotiations to deal with.
What do you do when you simply can't find the common ground and when it doesn't look like there is any? And we had another related question, which is when do you walk away when when do you think that a negotiation is no longer sort of tenable?
I'm going to start by answering a different question. Why are people negotiating? What is the incentive? People have got to have an incentive to negotiate. Probably, I mean, if you're in the win-win position or you have mild conflict, there may not be need to negotiate. People may not see that need. At the lose-lose, you're probably beyond negotiation. So the scope for negotiation is in that middle bit. So those are the circumstances in which to negotiate. And somebody else in the chat asked about biases. And so my bias is that there is always common ground.
And there's one question that came up that says, how do you see the balance between formal discussions and the informal side discussions to try and explore solutions?
I think you have to earn the right to the informal. I was representing government, and given the history and relationship that government had with that community and that they represented, and in some cases those individuals, they had no particular reason to trust me. I think if you try to have an informal conversation on that basis at that point in time in your engagement, you get a very different reaction than if it is after a period of time where they genuinely trust you, where they feel that you're not going to use that informal conversation against them in some way, shape, or form at the table or otherwise.
I'm thinking about the start of negotiation. For me, the informal stuff is about possibly leveling the playing field, but demonstrating that we're all humans, that we live in the same world. So most of what I do is at the community level. So it might be, we'll answer a question. What did you have for breakfast? And that's a very simple way of showing, the human behind the suit and putting everyone on a equal playing field.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you to our speakers, and have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thanks very much.